For me, being an optimist means I'm actively choosing to give a positive meaning to the things that happen to me, regardless of how society might tell me I should react to those situations. Testing. Life isn't always sunshine and beautiful beaches and tropical islands. But when it is, you just really gotta enjoy it. Being an eternal optimist, a lot of people get down on me like, you live with your head in the clouds, you don't live on this planet. If we use the classic analogy of optimists see the glass half full and pessimists see the glass half empty, we're both seeing the same glass. Being an optimist is still about living in reality. I still see things for how they are. It's just about being able to see potential positive outcomes, to see beauty, to see learning and growth. And that's something beautiful that gives us hope. It's a gift. It's something that anyone can use to immediately bring a sense of joy and happiness and gratitude to their life, regardless of any situation. It gives us space to say, I'm having an experience. We all have positive and negative experiences, positive and negative in quotes. It's all about how we react to it. It's all about that perspective and the meaning that we apply to the things that happen. For those of you who do want to learn how to be more of an optimist, here are my 5 tips for training ourselves to think like an optimist. How is this real life? How is this real life? How is this real life? Oh my God. Step 1, reflect on past experiences and identify positive outcomes. This is huge because so many of us get caught in these patterns from past traumas. I want to reiterate, this is not about excusing the things that cause our traumas. It's not about justifying traumas. But if we can get into the habit of reflecting on these experiences that define us and identifying, how did this make me stronger? What did I learn out of this? How did I grow out of this? For me, when I look back at my own life and I think about the fact that my parents divorced when I was young, that my family didn't have any money, that I was bullied the whole time I was growing up for being too flamboyant, too smart, all of these things ended up becoming the things that I value most about myself. The fact that I became so independent, the fact that I gained such good critical thinking skills, the fact that I forced myself to be outgoing, I forced myself to learn how to make friends and how to communicate better with people. How do I create a lens to where I can look at these experiences and say, this does define me, this is part of my identity, but that doesn't mean that I have to hold on to the negative patterns that arise with these traumas. Even if the only strength that comes with it is that we have empathy for other people who are going through similar traumas. That is a gift. That is something that can ultimately change the world. So we need to get into the habit of seeing the positive. And it literally is a habit. It's something that takes work. And it starts with letting go of our past, letting go of those things that are holding us down. How do I look at these past events that happened to me, really one by one? Make a list, even write it down. Make a list of those strengths. Make a list of the parts of your identity that came out of this that you like. Make a list of the things that you are grateful for in your life today that wouldn't exist if not for those past events. So that when we think about our past, we begin to see the positive. We begin to see how we grew, how we learned, how our life has shaped us into who we are, and that these things can become assets for us to help other people and for us to move forward in a more positive way. Number 2, when something we perceive as being bad happens to us, make a list of the things that you're grateful for. This is gonna sound absolutely insane, but the day my father died last year, he died, I'm sorry to say this, but in a pretty horrible way. He died in a hiking accident. His group got lost, he ran out of water, there was a spike in temperature, his heart gave out because of the heat. Horrifying. I was in Beirut when it happened. I got a call from my sister. Obviously, I was devastated. He was my best friend. One of the first things I did, I you not, was I made a list of the things that I was grateful for. I was grateful for the fact that we had such a good relationship and we had so many shared memories together. We just got on a beautiful trip together. We talked all the time. Our relationship could not have been any better in the end. I was grateful for the fact that I didn't have to see him die a horrible, long, drawn-out death. I didn't have to see him suffer, and actually his death was rather quick and painless. I'm grateful for the fact that he was with friends, he was in nature, he was doing something he loved, he was in a hiking group out every week. It sounds awful, but actually it completely shifted my beliefs around his death. Because rather than dwelling in the what ifs, rather than dwelling in the horror of it, which is totally possible and totally fine if that's something that you've done in the past. But again, we have an option to see beauty in these things. It does not mean I wasn't sad. It does not mean I wasn't grieving. It doesn't mean that I'm not still grieving. But in fact, part of the reason I'm making these videos is because I want to share my learnings from this process that I've had to go through in grieving, in figuring out who I am, in figuring out what my purpose is. And I realized the same way that he devoted his life to helping people, I wanted to help people in whatever ways that I can. These are gifts. These are beautiful things. These are things that add to our experience of being alive and ultimately make us a deeper human being. And that's something that can be worth celebrating and worth finding some sense of beauty and joy in. Number 3, ask yourself the simple question, could this be a good thing? I often find that being an optimist is less about these big traumatic experiences and more about our day-to-day. We often have these expectations for what we want our day to look like, what we want our life to look like. We plan things out in advance, and it's when those things don't go the way we expect them to that we become angry or we become disappointed. So if we can, in the moment, ask ourselves, could this be a good thing? I went to Nepal on a writing and meditation workshop a few years ago. Day 3 of my trip, I got just the worst food poisoning. Vomiting my guts out for 24 hours and really just completely drained myself. I felt absolutely horrible. And I remember as soon as I started to feel better, our group was meant to do a hike up a mountain to go see a temple. And I was like, I'm either going to be vomiting in my room or I can be vomiting on this hike and still get to see the temple. I'm just going to do it. I go up. I remember feeling like I was going to pass out the whole time. I'm like chugging coconuts, trying to rehydrate myself. And I get to the top and we met with this monk there. And I mentioned that I had food poisoning and he said, what a gift. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, we believe that food poisoning, when you get really sick at the very beginning of a trip, it means that you're cleansing your karma because you're about to begin a grand adventure. And I just remember thinking, this guy's nuts. Like, that's absolutely insane. Nothing good can come of me having food poisoning. It turned out that immediately after that, I ended up quitting my job and I continued traveling until now, essentially. It ended up being the beginning of the biggest adventure of my life. But the idea that this monk could see a terrible sickness as something beautiful, as something spiritual, as something poetic, is something that really stuck with me. It takes work. It is definitely a practice, but at least asking ourselves that question, at least asking, could this lead to something good, begins that process of shifting our perspective. Number 4, keep yourself around positive things and people. I mentioned this in my video, my 10 Be Happy Now, the Be Happy video. When there are those Debbie Downers in your life, when there are things in your life that constantly get you down, if there are triggers that you know exist in your life, let them go. You don't need to keep those things around you. And if you do, we can accept those things, acknowledge their presence, and work on not letting them affect us as much. But the things that we can change, the people that we can let go of, the things that we can keep away from us. For instance, I hate watching like rampant murder movies. Like, if it has a point, great, but if it's just watching people kill each other for the sake of killing each other, I refuse to watch it. Because it doesn't make sense to me that I would invite that energy into my life. I believe that when we invest our energy into even consuming violent media, into negative things, into things that don't bring us joy, then we're inviting things other than joy into our lives. And that, again, becomes part of a habit and becomes part of a practice. It's better that we really attune ourselves to what are things that bring me joy, what are things that bring me positivity, being on the beach, being in nature, watching happy things, listening to music that we love, being around people that bring us joy. I guarantee at some point you'll just want to do that all the time because it's good to feel good, but also it helps hold us accountable for maintaining that same attitude and for radiating that same energy. And then more people want to be around us. And that is a beautiful thing. And number 5, trust the process. I absolutely hate that quote. It's so cliche, but it's actually kind of true. I personally am of the belief that everything happens for a reason. I don't think everything in this universe is random. I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in cause and effect. And I do believe that everything that happens to us is to get us to somewhere we need to go. There's no way to foresee what that is. There's no way to know where we're gonna end up in life. So rather than sitting and dwelling on why is this happening to me, I think it's important to trust that it is happening for a reason. I will end up where I need to go, and that this event is going to be part of the reason I get there. If we can build that perspective and that lens for ourselves and trust that the things that are happening now are happening to get us where we need to go, it gives me a sense of comfort. It gives me a sense of faith, a sense of knowing that this will pass. Change is the only constant. My current state of unhappiness will lead to something better. And for me, that gives me hope for the future. And as an optimist, there's nothing more you can want than to have a little hope and to share it with the people around you. Well, I am optimistic that you learned something from watching this video that I just made. If you did, or if you didn't, please feel free to leave a little comment in the comments section. If you liked, do the like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Tell me your stories about how you also are an optimist. I love to hear it. Tell me how you're a pessimist. We'll all, come together and be like, no, you're not. You're kidding yourselves, you little squid. And look out for next week. Look out, next week we're gonna do another video. How is this real life? Blah, blah, blah. I can't see shit.